This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998, Christopher Mitchell, 212th Trooper, Silas 1610, Carmen CJ, Rune Scribble, Legendary Ray Ray, Ash, and Devin Dixon, and brought to you by 212th Trooper, who requested this topic. If there is a video you want me to make, just head over to Patreon or become a channel member, and select the Pickled Producer tier, since among other benefits, you'll get to make a video request every month, be it the continuation of an existing series, or a brand new story. Also, while I have you, please consider liking the video and subscribing, since it costs you nothing and really helps the channel to grow. But with that out of the way, let's get on with the story. We pick back up with Izuku in Class 1A on Nabu Island, a small sunny community several hours from the mainland, which has been chosen as the site of their next Hero Studies assignment, with the plan being for the students to manage the local hero agency, since with how idyllic everything is, their teachers had figured this would be good real-world experience for the kids, while being simple enough that even provisional heroes could manage without supervision. However, it seems Bruce had thought differently, as before leaving, he had given Izuku a small metal case, stating that he highly doubted he'd need it, but it's always best to have a contingency plan, so this is for if things go terribly wrong and lives are in danger. Thankfully, nothing of the sort has happened so far, with the case remaining fastened to the green-haired youth's utility belt as he sits at his desk. Due to being class rep, his job is to head up dispatch, assigning jobs to his fellow students, even if these are mostly helping someone find lost items or carrying groceries for grannies. Though when a call about a lost child comes in, he volunteers to help search from above with his gliding alongside Ochako, since Ida, who he'd usually send, is already on a job helping an old lady in the hospital. Together, the pair are able to track the boy, whose name is Katsuma, to a park. Though, when they attempt to bring him back to his big sister Mahiro, the girl in question slides into view and lambasts them for taking so long, while revealing that she was timing them to see how quickly they'd respond in a real emergency. Having taken off his mask as not to scare Katsuma, Izuku bows his head and modestly apologizes, promising to do better next time, while Ochako assures the little girl that she and Izuku were trying their best. Unfortunately, this just causes Mahiro to snap that it's lame for a hero to need his girlfriend to defend him, causing the pair to blush brightly and protest that it's not like, they're simply... Though in the time it takes them to half stammer out an explanation, Mahiro has taken Katsuma's hand and stormed away to get them some ice cream. From here, things return to their usual calm as night begins to fall, and after a tasty dinner of treats brought by the islanders as thanks for the heroes' hard work, the students of Class 1A start settling in for the night, all aside from Bakugou, who is sent on night patrol, since he refused to help out with their activities during the day. However, this peace is shattered when Katsuma comes running into the agency declaring that a villain is attacking. Naturally, the young heroes all spring into action, with Izuku taking command as he and a small group of students follow Katsuma to Mount Shirayama where this attack is happening, while the rest set up a perimeter to protect the other civilians. As it turns out, this villain is a giant praying mantis, with Izuku instructing his friends to flank it while he stuns it with a flashbang. Though when he drops the grenade, something interesting happens. The mantis does not cast a shadow in the bright light, with this being the first sign that something is amiss. The second is when Mahiro comes stumbling into view, rubbing her eyes and complaining that really hurt while the holographic bug fades, revealing it was all a plan to prove the UA students and heroes in general are losers. Having come back from his patrol and joined the battle team, Baku is furious that this little twerp wasted their time with a stupid prank, forcing Izuku and Kirishima to hold him back, though the young Batman does agree with his rival to a degree, somewhat sternly telling Mahiro that she inconvenienced a lot of people just now, and could have even put the island in danger if there was a real villain attack while they were all dealing with her prank. Unfortunately, this is just met with an unrepentant sneer from the girl, as she and her brother scamper off, leaving the provisional heroes to return to the agency and debrief. Evidently feeling bad for his part and his sister's actions, Katsuma approaches Izuku the following morning to apologize. Though bearing the kids no ill will, the green-haired youth chats casually with him, even commenting on his edge-shot pin, and learning that Katsuma wishes to be a hero, even if his quirk, cell activation, isn't really equipped for heroics. Encouragingly, Izuku mentions how he's quirkless and he's still able to be a hero, so it's more about the will to save people than anything else. With this inspiring the young boys, he vows to become a hero in spite of his quirk. However, it seems not everyone thinks so lowly of this ability, as that evening a quartet of villains led by the mysterious Nine arrive on Nabu Island, having come to steal cell activation, since unlike the version they stole from the boy's father last night, this one is compatible with Nine's blood type, meaning he'll be able to use his copied version of All for One without overtaxing his body as it currently does, to the point where he is forced to use a mobile life support system that pumps quirk-enhancing drugs into his body. As part of their arrival, the villains crash a ferry into the harbor, with Slice sinking all the other boats so no one can flee and warn the pro-heroes, while Chimera targets the communication systems to prevent the same via telephone. With their blackout now in place, they next turn their attention to causing chaos so that Nine can hunt down his target in the confusion. Meanwhile, back at the Hero Agency, Izuku and Bakugou receive a call from Maharu, who claims that villains are attacking. Though having been fooled once, the blonde tells her to cram it, right before the phone line suddenly goes dead. While he has to agree that it's probably another hoax, Izuku is unwilling to risk the kids getting hurt when he can save them, and so sets off on his own while the others try to diagnose their sudden telecom problem, as they've lost contact with all their classmates out on patrol. Unfortunately, it is around this time that a man on a moped arrives and frantically informs them of attacks going on across the island, and with their class rep off on a job in Incommunicado, it falls to Momo as vice rep to take the lead and plan their strategy. Being a pragmatic young woman, she has her classmates split into groups to handle these threats, as well as try and get their absent friends up to speed, with it falling to Ochako to find Izuku, since right now, his leadership and tactical thinking might be just what they need. And speaking of the young Batman, he finally arrives at Katsuma and Maharu's house, only to find it a smoldering ruin, while a villain with silver hair declares his intent to take the small boy's quirk to complete himself. Though in this timeline he has never seen All for One, Izuku is aware from Batman Inc.'s files that he was renowned for stealing quirks, and so quickly concludes that this man must have a similar power, and therefore be a similar threat. Consequently, his body moves before he even has time to think, with him dropping a flashbang and then using the resultant confusion to grab the kids and grapple to a nearby forest, since this should provide them cover. Unfortunately, here Nine makes use of one of his quirks, scanning, which acts like infrared vision and allows him to hone in on Katsuma easily. As a result, it is not long before he is in range to begin firing bullet lasers at the heroes, which begin penetrating his back armor, though in turn fail to do enough damage to incapacitate him. Recognizing that this advantage will not last forever, as sooner or later Nine will hit him in a place he's already burned away, Izuku makes the only choice he can, fight back, with him hurling a string of batarangs at the man that are meant to make him retreat or at least temporarily back off his pursuit. However, Nine has another idea in mind, using his air wall to simply repel them before continuing the chase. Now feeling all flustered, Izuku barely notices that he has left the forest and arrived at a field until Maharu yells at him to look out. Turning back to see what she's talking about, the green-haired youth is shocked to see Nine manifest an indigo dragon's head and neck from his back, which snakes out before coming in to clamp its jaws around Izuku. Thinking fast, the boy does manage to toss the younger kids out of harm's way, though at the cost of being grabbed, with several pieces of his suit beginning to crack under the pressure of the monster's bite as it attempts to crush him to death. Meanwhile, seemingly unfazed by the imminent end of a teenager's life, Nine advances on Katsuma, calmly instructing him to give up since there's no point fighting. Though fiery as ever, Maharu steps between her brother and the man with arms outstretched, as she declares that he can't have him. Seeing no need for the girl to keep living considering her quirk is not the one he seeks, the silver-haired man aims a bullet laser at her heart, though just as he is about to fire, he feels a hand press against his back. Suddenly, his connection to the ground vanishes, and as the hand is replaced with a thick boot, Nine finds himself tumbling end over end into the air. Scanning around for the cause, the villain finds a girl dressed similarly to the hero boy, though with more blue in her attire, as Ochako zips up after him and begins delivering a flurry of zero-G Batman martial arts. Thanks to the shocking nature of this, she does manage to land a couple of good blows, with this even being enough to force Nine to disengage his Hydra quirk, though once the initial surprise wears off, the villain is able to blow her away with air walls, then blast her out of the sky with bullet lasers while also returning himself to the ground. However, by now, Izuku is back on his feet, with the boy using the strange tubes coming out of Nine's back as an anchor to grapple over and try to punch him with his shock gauntlets. Knowing how bad things could be if his life support system is damaged, Nine takes this as his cue to stop holding back, as with superhuman reaction speed, he yanks the grapple cable free from his back, then knees the young hero in the face as he draws near. However, this is not the end of his assault, as when he tosses the boy on top of the girl, he then begins activating his original weather quirk to channel a lightning bolt that strikes them both, taking them out of the fight at last. Now all that's left is to take the cell activation quirk, though before he can, his body's frailty betrays him, as he is racked with spasms while he coughs up blood, leaving him unable to take the few steps needed to grab the cowering child. Spotting this, Slice bursts from the tree line and runs to her comrade's side, urging him to lean on her, since together they can capture this brat, though before the villains can bring this plan to fruition, several other members of Class 1A who'd been tailing her arrive, with them driving Slice and Nine off, while Katsuma and Maharu rush to check on the dynamic duo. Thankfully, they are not dead, though they are both pretty badly injured, with their costumes showing signs of major damage. rage. Nonetheless, their classmates are able to carry them to safety, with them all holding up in a large factory where the other heroes have already evacuated the civilians to. However, in spite of the island's doctor doing his best, there is little he can do for Izuku and Ochako, as their level of injuries requires care only a state-of-the-art hospital can provide. Or at least, that is what they think until Katsuma volunteers to help, as with his cell activation, he can speed up their body's healing process, allowing them to wake up and get back on their feet. Knowing they'll need all the heroes they can get, the doctor readily agrees, with the young boy applying his power, and as promised, causing the Bat Duo to open their eyes. At once, Ochako panics, asking where Nine is, with Izuku being equally frightened, though when the others fill them in on the situation, they begin forming a plan. Simply put, they cannot stay here, as the factory is too exposed. Though remembering Maharu's prank from last night, Izuku proposes they move everyone to the castle on top of Mount Shirayama, since it will force the villains to battle uphill if they wish to get to them, not to mention the small land bridge acts as a natural funnel point, meaning they'll be able to see them coming. However, having noticed how Nine's quirk seems to favor open spaces, particularly his devastating hydro and weather quirks which only came into play when they left the forest, the green-haired youth does alter the plan a bit from canon, specifically who will be working with who and where Katsuma will be as the villain's target. Though this is not the only change she'll be making, as while the others set out for the castle, Izuku, Ochako, and the captured mummy instead head for the cave network inside the mountain, where the pair are quick to set up an impromptu bat cave of sorts, even if the lack of a functioning comms network and other resources mean they have to rely on rigging up some wired security cameras to one of the computers they were able to bring from the Hero Agency. Nonetheless, it does at least give them a multi-angle view of the small island they've decided to make their last stand on, with Ochako agreeing to monitor this in case of a sneak attack while Izuku sets about several tasks he needs to get done before the upcoming battle. First off, he needs to interrogate Mummy for any information he can get on his allies that might prove valuable, though naturally, the villain is unwilling to turn on his comrades, espousing how the four of them have endured persecution for their strength together, and how Nine will create a better world where the strong rule the weak, as is the way of nature. However, in a flat voice, Izuku retorts that while he feels bad for what they have suffered, that doesn't give them the right to trample on others, and since Mummy's friends are threatening his friends, he needs to stop them. With this declaration, the young Batman begins applying force, both physically by binding him in a stressed position from a stalactite, but also psychologically, as in this dark cave, it is easy to play on the man's insecurities, questioning why he alone was captured while the others managed to escape. Is it because he is weak and unworthy to see the world he dreams of? Or did his so-called comrades abandon him because they knew he was expendable? Just a freak with a useful quirk and nothing more to them. Due to having a volatile streak beneath his facade of cool apathy, it does not take a lot of this prodding to drive Mummy into a rage, as he screams out all the ways his friends will make this mouthy bat brat suffer, with this being exactly what Izuku had been looking for, as these are insights on how the villains fight and think, all things he is quick to relay to Ochako, who in turn shares them with the others. As for his second job, when his fellow bat escorts their prisoner back up to the castle and he is all alone in the cave, he opens the case Bruce had given him, as defending a castle full of innocents against three powerful villains seems to meet the criteria for things have gone terribly wrong. However, a moment later, he comes to sincerely wish he hadn't, as nestled inside it is a single quirk-destroying bullet, identical to the ones they'd been dispatched to retrieve from Chisaki. How is it that Bruce has one of these unless he lied about them being destroyed? But why would his mentor lie, and especially to him? Unfortunately, now it is Izuku's turn to feel the creeping darkness play on his mind, as a small unwelcome voice points out that it wouldn't be the first time, since he knows there are other things Bruce is hiding from him, so why not this? How much can he truly trust the Batman? Not wanting to think about such things, especially when he needs his resolve for the battle ahead, Izuku snaps the case shut and tosses it as far away as he can, unable to believe that the man he looks up to would have something so evil, and worse, would expect him to use it. Subsequently, it is a rather sleepless night for the green-haired boy, though eventually night ends and a new day dawns, and with it comes Nine, Slice, and Chimera, who as expected begin making their way across the land bridge, their mind made up that today they will acquire soul regeneration and bring about the world they desire. Though to do this, they will have to get through the heroes first, most of whom stand ready to face them on a terrace in front of the castle. As planned, when the villains come into view, the students split into 3 teams. The first, led by Bakugou and containing people like Kirishima, Ojiro, and Sato, make a beeline for Chimera, as the best way to combat him is through raw power, while Ochako's team, which includes people such as Todoroki, Sero, and Mina, head for Slice, as their goal is to incapacitate her long enough to burn or melt away her hair, since that is her quirk factor. As for the rest, they hang back, with Momo leading them as they provide range support, with her created cannons and Jiro's sound waves being particularly useful at keeping the villains on their toes. However, this still leaves 9 mostly unimpeded, with the silver-haired villain concluding the children are too scared to confront him directly after what he did to their friends. How weak and pathetic. Nonetheless, he can use this, as looking around, he finds the boy he seeks clinging to his sister in the back line. Then, when they spot him, the girl orders her brother to run, with little Katsuma scampering off into a nearby cave. Foolish child. This will not protect him, a fact 9 intends to make clear as he breaks away from the battle and follows him into the cave. Though, who exactly is the fool is yet to be seen, as no sooner has 9 stepped inside than the image of Katsuma vanishes, revealing itself to be one of Maharu's holograms, while behind him, a bang is followed by heavy rumbling, as a line of explosive gel around the tunnel mouth detonates, creating a cave-in that traps him inside. Though this is not all it does, as it also renders the passage pitch black, something that would intimidate most people, though 9 is not most people, as he simply activates his scanning quirk, as this will illuminate whatever hero is waiting to ambush him. However, to his surprise, nothing shows up, so perhaps they are further in, or else their plan is to simply trap him inside rather than attack him. No matter, he will simply find another way. Ow! Suddenly, a sharp pain strikes the back of the villain's head, and bending down to grab whatever had hit him then clattered to the floor, the man feels a metal projectile in the shape of a bat. However, before he can piece this together, something moves out of the dark and strikes him in the face, causing him to bleed for the first time in a long time as he involuntarily staggers back. Activating his scan quirk again so he can find his assailant, 9 is shocked to find nothing, and even as he turns in the direction of a zipping sound he recognizes the Bat-Child's grappling hook, he cannot see him. In his modulated voice, Izuku then states that he imagines the villain must be pretty confused, his voice echoing off the walls to create a demonic round, before explaining that 9's ability only allows him to track quirks, but he's quirkless, so to a man who believes the only thing that matters is a powerful ability, he's invisible. With this declaration comes a swing kick to the back that knocks 9 into a cave wall, though being smart enough to read the kid's pattern, he is able to create an air wall to block the follow-up attempt to cuff him. Unfortunately, by the time he has spun around and unleashed a burst of bullet lasers, the boy is already gone, having vanished into the pitch darkness once again. Knowing he cannot afford to keep air walls up permanently as it will trigger another bout of his illness like the kind that immobilized him yesterday, 9 decides to push forward at top speed, as this is the best way to get back to the battle and reunite with his comrades. However, Izuku evidently doesn't see it this way, jeering that the villain is fleeing like a coward now that his quirks aren't working for him. What happened to him being the strong who would rule over the weak, since right now, he just seems like a scared little man. Furiously, 9 declares that he isn't scared of anything or anyone, though in doing so, he slows down long enough for Izuku to descend upon him from above, using his detective vision to see with perfect clarity as he slams 9 into the ground, and then delivers a punch with his shock gauntlets to the man's back. However, rather than being the finishing blow he had hoped, this only seems to empower the villain as his whole supply of quirk-enhancing drug goes coursing through his body, while glowing purple veins shine through the skin of his face. With this comes a massive boost in his quirk's potency, as he fires not 1 but 2 hydras up at Izuku, so the boy is sent crashing through the cave ceiling with a number of painful cracks. This sound also gives 9 an idea, as why look for an exit when he can just create one? Then he can call lightning down and kill this brat. To this end, he has his Hydra drop Izuku, as they instead begin tearing through the cave ceiling and walls while down below, he attempts to speed up the excavation with some bullet lasers. Knowing exactly what must be going through the crazed villain's mind, Izuku implores him to stop as he hits the ground, crying that they're directly beneath the castle, and if 9 keeps going, it'll collapse and 1,000 people will die. Still in that state of mania, 9 roars back that he doesn't care. What good are 1,000 weak lives anyway? They should be honored to die for the enrichment of the strong. Such logic sickens Izuku to his stomach, though that might also partially be whatever he landed on when he fell, and rolling over to get off it, he is shocked to find the silver case with the quirk-destroying bullet. This could end things here and now and save all those innocent lives, but to use it knowing how it was made would make him no better than Chisaki. Would Eri understand if he explained it to her, or would she hate him for using the product of her pain? Izuku doesn't know, though he does know he'd rather not find out. To this end, he tries reaching Nine one last time, warning him now to stop before he is made to stop, since he can still rejoin his friends and leave this cruel, selfish path behind. However, by now, the silver-haired man is too far gone to consider any other path, and knowing what he must do though it pains him, Izuku lunges forward. Through the glow of his lasers, Nine does see the boy coming, especially now that half his face is no longer hidden by his mask. Even more pathetic is the fact that he is crying, with the villain sneering that he'll give him something to cry about, though as he brings up an air wall to stop his approach, the young hero grapples to the side, dodging the wall, and then springing off the side of the tunnel to jab him in the throat with something he'd been clutching in his hand. At once, Nine feels his strength leave him as his Hydra dissipate and the wall he'd erected vanished. Not wanting to believe what his body is telling him, the mad villain next tries to shoot the boy through the heart with a bullet laser, since he's right there, though nothing comes. In a remorseful tone, Izuku explains to the man that he had no choice. He had to render him quirkless for the lives of everyone on the island. He's sorry. Only now does Nine understand why the boy is crying. He's crying for him and the suffering he has just knowingly inflicted on his enemy. Though, even Izuku does not fully understand what he has done, as when he attempts to cuff the villain again, Nine lets out a scream and declares that he refuses to live as weak, quirkless trash, before biting down on his tongue and ending his own life. There is nothing Izuku can do to save him, so that when he emerges from the cave carrying the man's body, it is with the sense that this was a very hollow victory. Even the sight of his friends safe while Slice and Chimera are bound does little to alleviate his guilt, with the green-haired boy barely uttering a word as he instructs the others to gather the civilians, since it's time to go home. A few hours later, several pro-heroes arrive on Naboo, having been alerted to the communications blackout, with Bruce being among them, and after checking that he is safe, he praises Izuku for his leadership during this ordeal, since from what Ochako told him, it was his plan that managed to save everyone's lives. However, in his state of guilt and shame, not to mention the doubt he feels towards his mentor for even giving him that bullet, Izuku doesn't want to hear it, instead simply asking why he lied about not retrieving them from Overhaul's lab. Clearing his throat, the American hero prepares to answer, though it seems the boy is not done, as now that he's opened the floodgate he cannot stop himself, as he more heatedly starts demanding to know things like how can he look Eri in the eye when he uses and distributes the weapons made from her suffering? Who is this Clark he keeps skirting around mentioning? And what other lies has the Dark Knight told him? In spite of the anger with which his protege is looking at him, Bruce remains calm, as he sighs that from the moment they met, he knew that the kid would be smart enough to figure out something was off, so this conversation was inevitable. He just didn't think it would come so soon. Alright, if Izuku is willing to hear him out, he'll tell him everything right from the beginning. No more secrets, no more lies. And that's where we'll leave things for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts, suggestions, or screams of rage in the comments below.